Hi, everyone. My name is Nathan Merkel. Welcome to the Ivory Tower podcast, where we talk a little bit about sport and society, what sport looks like within the global context, what it looks like within the American context, what we think about sport, how we experience sport, why, how do we consume sport. I really hope you enjoy the following episode, and I hope you will continue to listen down the road. Thanks. Okay, everyone, welcome to the Ivory Tower podcast, where we discuss sport in society, how we look at sport, how we view sport, how we consume sport. I'm really excited about this episode. This one is a bit more of an in-depth look at the psychology of sport, the sociology of sport, why we consume it, and how we consume it. I'm joined here today by Matt Durant, who currently lives in Ohio and who is a self-proclaimed sport enthusiast. You go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, what's up, guys? My name is Matt Durant. I'm from Northern Maine, currently work in Ohio. I studied 4 years of sports media and journalism at Franklin Pierce University and at Eastern Kentucky University. So definitely been heavily involved in the sports thing really since I was in middle school, high school, I really got involved. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. It's awesome. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm really curious about this episode because when I first released the podcast, I know you sort of messaged me and let me know about your interest in minor league sports, and I actually have a keen interest in researching this specific phenomenon of the psychology of minor league fans and how individuals support minor league teams. And it was sort of a perfect timing that you messaged me. So I'm really curious if you could paint us a little bit of a picture of who your favorite teams are and why you decide to favor those specific teams.
Yeah, I do watch a lot of minor league sports, specifically football. Football is really my number one. Like I'm a Battlehawks fan for the United Football League. I was a Michigan Panthers fan when we had the USFL and XFL split up before they merged. The Cologne Centurions, they're European League of Football. Not a lot of people know about this league, but there's a big league in Europe. Huge fan out there. I watch a lot of their games. And then a couple years ago, we had this fan-controlled football league. Again, very minor league. They ran on Twitch. It was a streaming league. You get to pick the plays. I was a fan of the Beasts when they were around. So very much weird sports teams. And then being from Maine, I support the Maine Celtics in the NBA G League, Portland Sea Dogs for minor league baseball.
Mhm.
More of the kind of that hometown bias, which is kind of seen from, most sports fans nowadays, which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm really curious. Out of all of those teams, you really didn't mention any or if any pro teams. Is there a reason why you decide to support these sort of niche leagues? You mentioned the European Football League, the Twitch League, and things of that nature. Is there a reason why you're favoring minor league teams?
Yeah. I mean, I do watch pro sports. I do enjoy the high pros. I'm a Raiders
Yeah.
fan. It's from my dad. I do watch the Bulls for my brother. Me and
Hmm.
him watch the Bulls together and stuff. But I do watch a lot of minor league sports. Part of that is because I know a lot of people going to the schools I did. I work with a lot of small school athletes.
Hmm.
I've met a lot of small school athletes both at those schools, but elsewhere as well. So I guess I just have more of a connection to those like stories of the smaller school kids going through to the smaller sports. But at the same time, I think the narrative that's crafted through the leagues is really interesting. The UFL right now, how they're kind of crafting their stories is these are the guys that you might see in the league even next year. These are the guys, if they do really well, they're going to show up next year. And then you can follow those stories as they go to the league.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I really enjoy that. I did the very first episode that I did with my father talked about the inception of the Battlehawks into St. Louis in 2018 after the Rams left in 15. And him and I talked a lot about how we struggle to support sport in general. And I really want to find a way to psychologically support the Battlehawks. And I would love to figure out a way to do that. And I think the way that they run their league, it's very interesting with their extra point system. They have the 1 point, the 2 point, and the 3 point. And there's no extra point field goal, right? It's all a 1 point drive, 2 point drive, 3 point drive, and so it makes it a lot more enticing. And didn't the XFL do the way they did their kickoffs? Didn't the NFL actually adopt that same style of kickoff, or was that a different adaptation?
No, they did. They did pretty much copy line for line what the XFL had come up with when they returned in like 2022, I think
Yeah,
it was. Might have been 2023.
yeah. So that's very interesting. Yeah,
That's another huge part of why these leagues are so fun to watch is they are coming up with unique ways to draw you in.
yeah.
They know they can't draw fans in with star players because if
Mhm,
they had a star player, they're going to go to the NFL, they're going to go to the NBA.
mhm.
So they have to come up with cool things. Think the Savannah Bananas. This is kind of like that big craze on viral, going viral on social right now. They came up with their own version of baseball because they know they're not going to be able to draw fans in to watch regular baseball.
Mhm.
So they came up with a way to use their antics.
Yeah.
It's the same idea with these leagues, right? The
Um,
battle, like the UFL, they have that, like you said, like the different ways you can score once you score a touchdown. They have all these teams, their focus in their marketing isn't necessarily on like, hey, this team is here. It's more on, hey, these are the players. Meet the players. They are what matter. A lot of these leagues are player forward, which I think is really important.
yeah, that's really cool. I think what really reminded me or stood out to me about the Savannah Bananas is it literally feels like it's the Globetrotters, but for baseball. And I think
Yeah,
they're rebranding it as such. I think they're really hinting at that sort of identity is like we are the Globetrotters, but baseball. And I think it'd be really interesting if other sports did the same thing. Like, what about soccer and what about the NFL and football? Like, I'm really curious as to when or if do you think any other sports like that will surface, or do you think it's baseball and basketball that'll just run the show?
well, we didn't think it was ever gonna be more than basketball. Then we got the bananas. So you
Yeah,
never
you're right.
truly know. I think with those two sports in particular, it's a lot easier to make it happen.
Yeah,
Basketball, look at street basketball. A lot of that is what was influenced by the Globetrotters, but also the Globetrotters took from that culture as well.
yeah,
And then with, the bananas, it's kind of like, what can we do that's like different? Because they're a minor league team. Minor league teams don't stand out unless they got a funny name.
yeah.
Like most of the time, when you're talking about minor league teams, if they don't have a funny name, you don't know they exist half the time, or
Yeah,
unless it's near you.
yeah, it's fair. I feel like a lot of minor league teams do have these wild, abstract names. And I think it
Yeah,
is that sort of psychological connection to sort of make you like what we're doing, to talk about them, to remember them, to be like, oh, what's this? What's that? The Savannah Bananas, or like, those random minor league teams that have those crazy
yeah,
names. I think it's definitely to hit at that, marketing aspect of let's be super random and make them remember. And I think it's working.
yeah. I bought a shirt a week ago for the Danville Dairy Daddies out of Danville, Virginia.
The who?
The Danville Dairy Daddies.
The
Their
Dairy
jerseys are cow
Daddies.
print. It's hilarious.
Oh my
It's an
gosh.
alternate identity. They run it for like 3 or 4 games a year.
Yeah.
They're usually the Danville Otterboss, which alone, cool name.
Yeah. That is cool. I feel like a lot of more professional teams need to they need to start looking at the psychology of that instead of being like the Eagles and the Chiefs,
Have some fun.
yeah, like have some fun with it. Let's do, like the Dairy Daddies. That's so funny. And I think it really hits on that psychology of being a minor league fan and what that looks like. Because I think in my mind, when I think of minor league sports, I immediately think of like families that show up because tickets are cheap and it's a bit more of a family friendly environment. And what I remember the most about attending minor league games is what's funny to me is I feel like I have more fun attending minor league games, not because of the sport product itself, but because of the service that the minor league team is putting on rather than pro sports. And if I go to
Yeah.
like a pro team, it's really heavily focused on the product of sport. But when you go to a minor league stadium, like you said, they've got to lean on to different aspects of what they provide. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think baseball is starting to lean more into the fun side. Rob Manfred, their commissioner, their huge thing that he's mentioned multiple times is they're more focused on the stadium atmosphere than the game itself. The game is there, but the baseball game is more a social event than it is a sporting event.
Yeah.
And I think that is a focus. that I wish more leagues would go down. And I'm glad that he is saying that. He's not a very popular commissioner. He never was. People hated him from the beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's putting an effort to go fan first. He's made the game shorter, right?
Mhm.
He's done all these things. Like him being like, this is a social event is a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. There's been a lot of hot takes with the current system of how baseball is changing drastically like that. And I think if you think of the way that baseball used to be played, it was very like product first, and games were 5 hours, and it's really difficult for a family of four. If you have two young kids, they're seven,
You know,
eight, 9 years
yeah, from
old.
six things.
Like, how are they going to sit through a 5 hour baseball game? Like, you've got to figure out ways to tap into that psychological interest of being a fan. And I think putting fans first and what the minor league system is doing, I think needs to be implemented on the pro level. Just because competition is higher doesn't mean you need to sacrifice fan experience. I think it needs to remain at the utmost priority going forward. But it's really,
Yeah,
really cool to see what minor league teams are doing. And I think it's really interesting and how, like you said, that stadium environment is drastically different from minor leagues to pro leagues.
yeah. Like you said, Savannah Bananas, right?
Yeah.
They have a strict. It's 2 hours or 9 innings, whichever comes first.
Wow.
They don't play to 9 innings. They play 2 hour cutoff.
Yeah. That's interesting. I really like that. I think that's a cool. Do you think you could ever see the MLB doing that?
I personally don't. I think the owners are too focused on making money that they won't do that because the owners have too much say.
Yeah.
The fans come first.
I agree. I think the problem with a lot of major league sport right now is that the owners are given too much power. They're given too much say, and they don't take into account what the fans want or need. And I think that's the shift that is happening with minor league teams right now. Is that I think even though there are owners that need to make money, but they're starting to realize that they need the fans the most to survive.
They need the fans in there. They can't make money if they don't have the fans there.
Yeah, exactly.
Minor league's not on TV enough to be able to say it's a TV deal.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I've actually watched on TV a minor league game.
It's because it's on ESPN4. No one watches ESPN4.
Yeah, like you have to, it's
That's a
behind all
huge
these
thing the
paywalls,
UFL is
right?
doing. The
Yeah,
UFL is on major Fox.
yeah,
Not even on FS1. They're on like major Fox.
yeah. I remember I actually tuned into the XFL versus the Arlington Renegades the last time they lost by 30-15, but on a wild like last second pick six into the end zone, which was crazy, but they ended up losing. But yeah, it's really interesting to see these minor league teams are getting a bit more traction. And I think that Savannah Bananas organization is doing a wonderful job.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah, they know
They left
very
the
well.
they left the minor league system. They're doing their own thing now.
Yeah.
It's like they have 4 teams that they circle through. So the Bananas are always playing, and it's one of 3 other teams that they're playing against. They have multiple jersey options for wherever they go.
Yeah.
They sold out Clemson's football stadium for a game.
Really?
Like they're selling out. Like they had to change the dimensions of where the fans can be there
Yeah.
to make it work. But Clemson's baseball stadium holds like 4,000 people. Like not enough people. Too many for not enough for a Savannah Bananas game.
Yeah.
They sold out of their football stadium to do the
That's
game there instead, and they're sold out for 3 days or 2 days or something like that.
that's wild. That's really cool. So do you think to pivot a little, do you think your support of minor league teams is heavier or higher on the scale of importance for you than pro sports and pro teams?
I would say so. I think it's I'm in the same place with college sports as well, if we're talking like that as well.
Yeah.
I watch Division 2, Division 3 sports, FCS football. I watch the lower levels of sports more than I watch the upper level of sports.
Interesting.
I think the talent's fun, but the thing is I also have a preference to being, like I said, those stories. There's so much stories that can be told.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I remember you said to begin with that you followed a lot of niche teams because like you had a personal interaction with the team or with the players through what you did in school. And so now that you're sort of transitioning out of that, do you think you still just follow the minor league teams just because you feel like you have a bit more of a connection with the team itself? Or I'm curious what you think.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I have more connection with those leagues and the teams that are there. But also those athletes are really easy to reach out to and talk to.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of guys who on social media, they don't have huge social media presence. So if you reach out and you're like, hey, awesome game today, they're gonna talk to you about it if you ask them about it.
Yeah.
I know one of my buddies, EJ Burgess, he played at Franklin Pierce University. He was our star player. The program there only started in 2020. Like they restarted the program in 2019, didn't have a season in 2020, came back in 2021.
Mhm.
He was one of the best running backs in Division Two 2021. Didn't get drafted in the NFL because he's a D2 player.
Mhm.
He's currently playing indoor football with the Green Bay Blizzard in the IFL, which is the indoor
Mhm.
football league.
Yeah.
Major league. Like Arena League is done. That's the big league now for indoor football.
Yeah.
I still reach out to him and we've talked about it. It's like there's so many good players that you can just reach out to and be like, hey, great game. And they're like, really, you watched? And they'll want to talk about it. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like I think that's that sort of connectedness that like fans of minor league teams would feel. Like you're mentioning that sort of sense of, I guess, shared identity that you have with the team and with the player. And like the fact that it's so much easier to reach out to the player and to the team entices, I guess, does it entice you more to support the team itself because you feel like it's so easy to just talk to them and feel connected with them rather than a pro sport. Like you can't just DM Pat Mahomes and like he's not going to answer every DM like that. Like it's not going to happen. But like when you message these minor league teams, you said that they answer quickly, and so that's really
Yeah.
interesting.
You'll get answers quick. And even in the NFL, like we can be like even with the NFL, if you're reaching out to a guy who went to a smaller school,
Uh,
if they aren't like a huge star in the NFL and they went to like a smaller college, there's still a chance they reach back out. Not as likely as those minor league players might, because they might honestly, some of them might just recognize you from being at a game. Because those fans, the crowds aren't super huge.
yeah.
So like if you're at a game and you reach out to a player, hey, saw you today, and they look at your profile like, oh, I saw you there too. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. That's really cool. Like I'm sure that sort of interaction that entices you to come back and keep consuming minor league sport, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of that family atmosphere, family culture, you know.
Yeah.
I grew up in a town with 98 people in it. Like,
Yeah.
I grew up in a tiny town. So, kind of seeing that same idea of like, oh, there's 150 people here.
Yeah.
I can know each person in here. And if it's the same people we see next time, we can re-interact.
Yeah.
If it's the same people in the field, we can talk after the game. Like, there's not a huge barrier to conversation in the way. There's not like, hundreds of security guards, hundreds of thousand people in the stands.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, because I feel like with pro sport, even though it is, I mean, I guess generally speaking, the product is, I guess, more entertaining, air quotes, like, but with minor league sport, what you're describing is really interesting, is like so much more accessible. It's so much more easier to consume and it's consumer friendly too, to where you really don't have to jump through a lot of hoops to consume it. Like to go to games, it's pretty cheap,
Yeah.
right? I know the XFL, I know their season tickets for St. Louis Battlehawks, I'm pretty sure it was $150 like for 4 games.
Yeah.
That's insane to me that you can buy a season tickets for about 150 to $200 and you can go and they're selling out. They have like 35,000 fans that attend every game. And
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Battlehawks is the biggest market in the league right now in terms
Yeah.
of how many people go.
Yeah.
It's a huge reason why fans in the UFL are saying, let's go to San Diego where the fans got abandoned. Let's go to these other
Yeah.
places.
Go to Oakland, go to San Diego, like go to these places and I think you'll see exactly what happened. What my dad and I described is the exact reason why people love the Battlehawks.
It's the same reason DC was so saturated year one.
Yeah.
Year one of the XFL, the DC Defenders were a hugely popular team. The Commanders were also incredibly bad back then.
Yeah.
There's correlation there.
Yeah.
Their fans are not showing up as much this year, but the Commanders are also really good now, so they can go back to supporting their NFL team.
Yeah.
And I think like that's a huge thing. Like that
Yeah.
also plays a factor.
I think it does. It's very interesting. I like to sort of pivot and transition into your viewpoint with pro sport. Like you sort of painted this picture of, like you said, a family environment with minor league sports. Do you feel the same way with pro sports?
It's its own way. Like I watch pro sports mostly with my family, which is very different than saying like the sport is a family. Like you have certain groups. Like if you're from the hometown, like you live in this place where the team is, probably a lot more likely like you know some people and you all hang out and you talk to each other
Mhm.
consistently. There's regulars at NFL games. That is a known thing. There are guys who are like I'm at every single game every single week. For me, being a fan of the Raiders and being on the East Coast, it's a little different. I'm a fan of the Raiders because my dad was a fan of the team. But over here, I know I've met four Raiders fans that live out here. And in terms of that aren't my family.
Mhm.
Like my family, there's a bunch of my family who are, but I know four people who are not my family that are Raiders fans out in the Northeast.
Yeah.
It's not as easy. And it's not like I can go on social media because social media, it's pretty toxic environment when it comes to sports. And yeah, so it makes it a little trickier. I don't feel the same way in terms of
Really
like being able to talk to players and stuff and being able to talk with fans.
interesting. Do you think that's a sort of barrier for you to consume pro sport? That sort of toxicity with social media or that like lack of, you said you only had four individuals that follow the Raiders. Like, do you think that's a hindrance? Does that bar you from following pro sports more than you think you should?
I think it's definitely a barrier for me to like be like, this is all I'm gonna watch.
Mhm.
I do think it does hold me back in that sense. I haven't watched a full Raiders season in who knows how long because of media deals.
Wow.
I watch mostly Red Zone now, which is that's all the games they just kind of jump back and forth to the big plays.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're also trying to hit at that fan centered with that whole red zone thing. I think they're
Yeah,
trying to hit at what baseball is trying to do, what minor league sports is trying to do. Let's just show everybody the highlights. Why not, why force fans to watch a full game when you can watch five different games at the same time? And the games that are happening, you just get the one play that went for 15, 20 yards. You don't watch all the middle in between sort of floozy plays. You get the highlights. And it's just
yeah,
constant highlights after one another.
yeah. And I hate saying that I do watch just that because I enjoy the strategy of the game. I'm gonna be watching every night of the draft.
Yeah.
Like I consume so much sports, but as a result of consuming all kinds of sports at other levels where I have more interaction with people, I feel like it does hinder my love for the bigger sports because there isn't the same level of interaction.
Yeah. Do you think if you had more interaction with the players like you do in minor leagues, do you think your answers to these questions would be different?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I had more interaction, even with just having more interaction with just fans,
Yeah.
I feel like if I had people I could talk to about the Raiders, I'd watch
Yeah.
a lot more Raiders football.
Yeah.
Like I was raised in Pats country. There's a lot of
Mhm.
Pats fans out there. And if I would have been raised a Pats fan, I think even then, I think I'd answer differently.
Yeah. It's interesting.
But I feel like what the team I end up going with based on, the factors that have led it to it, it definitely impacts how I feel. But it makes me grateful because I don't think I would have the same love for these smaller teams if I didn't
Yeah.
have some of these things happen.
Interesting.
If I was raised a Pats fan, they won how many Super Bowls over the last, they won six Super Bowls in my
Yeah.
lifetime. Like, I feel like success of the teams also plays a factor. The Raiders have been to the playoffs twice in my lifetime, and one of them I was 1 year old.
Hmm. Yeah. That's very interesting. Do you think your geographic location and where you've lived has also played a factor?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Interesting. So do you think when you think of minor league sports and you think of geographic location, you said you're a fan of the European Football League. And, obviously you're not able to go to those games, but you follow that online, right?
Yes, I'm very much online with that. And it's the same idea of like the players.
Yeah, interesting. So do you reach out to those players too?
Yeah, some of those guys have played over here in the US.
Interesting.
I mean, the starter for my team that I root for, the starter, yeah, for the Centurions out of Cologne, Germany, their starter's Jeremy Musa, who was the starting quarterback at Florida A&M
Yeah.
for the last few years.
Oh,
So like, there's a lot of American guys that are over there, and then there's a lot of international players who aren't going to get a chance in the U.S. unless they enter through the pathway program, which the NFL has. Which, to be honest, it's not a very open pathway. They bring in 4 or 5 guys a year.
yeah. That's really interesting. So, do you think that the nature of minor league sports and how minor league sports is volatile, right? Like you don't know when and where if leagues are going to stay. Like you said that what is that Twitch league where fans decide the next play, it folded within a couple years. Like do you think, the UFL is going to fold at some point? Do you think the fear of that affects the way that you support some of these minor league associations?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the chance it's going to fold. I think the UFL is a special case where, because that started as two separate leagues that were competing against each other.
Yeah.
I mean, you had the XFL and the USFL, who both were on major networks, who both were trying to pull from the exact same pool of like just below NFL level players.
Hmm.
And it spread out both leagues so thin that they were both going to fail.
Yeah.
So they merged to avoid that. And now they're already at the point where they're making enough money where they're going to expand where they're going.
Yeah.
They've confirmed two more teams for 2026 already, and it's likely that number is going to rise to four by the time we get there.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I think it's not necessarily a financial concern right away,
Mhm.
but there's always going to be in the back of your head. I mean, we've seen what? We've seen 10 leagues across the last 15 years go down,
Yeah.
including the original United Football League, which was in the 2010, 2011,
Yeah.
where Josh Johnson got his start. That man's been everywhere.
Yeah, it's
But
it's interesting. Yeah, it's very very interesting to think about because I coming from my background with academics, I never really think of or I've been trying to find research on minor league fandom and why fans specifically choose to support minor league teams. And usually, what I find for the ones that are out there is that what you're describing is that there is a sort of connection. There's this sort of, sense of feeling this, you feel connected to the team, you feel connected to the players. It's a lot easier to consume. The environment is a lot more family friendly, but that's drastically different with pro sports. And so I think it's very interesting the way that it's sort of structured within society right now. And I think one thing that comes to my mind and I'm really curious about is this whole relegation thing that's happening with the MLS. Have you heard of that?
yeah, I've read up on this and
Yeah.
seen that they're starting to implement it now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm super excited about that. I think that will help to mimic a little bit what European soccer does, but I think that'll help in general, just soccer in America. And
It's needed.
yeah,
Like soccer in America has needed fixed for a long time.
yeah, that brings up the question. Do you think that it would make sense for like the UFL and the NFL to do that, to do a sort of relegation thing?
I've thought about this. I have thought about this a
Mhm.
lot with like doing something similar. I don't know if it would work with American football because I don't know if fans could handle it.
Right.
Most of these NFL teams, they're in major markets. They have a national presence. A lot of these teams have been around a long time as well.
Yeah.
I don't think owners would be willing to let it happen.
Yeah, I
And I
agree.
don't know if fans would be willing to work with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it football is so ingrained in our society. There's no way that they would ever think about doing some sort of relegation thing. Only if like when they play, they don't like move logistically. They just play different games and like but still, I don't think the market is there. It's not strong enough. And these smaller teams, I think the way that they've structured it now is it's sort of like a almost an entry league, sort of minor league, but it's not really affiliated, right? Like these teams aren't affiliated with pro teams. They're just standalone teams. And have some of the players moved from the UFL to the NFL too?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors.
Yeah.
I don't see it working. Um,
Yeah, I don't, yeah, I would agree.
yeah, but smaller sports though.
Which smaller sports do you think?
Um, yeah, I think like up and coming sports, soccer is a good example, right? MLS is starting to rise in the US. The format, their ownership was very different. The league owned every single team for the longest while.
Mm,
And then they switched it up and now they're getting owners.
yeah.
We're seeing the pro lacrosse league is starting to come up.
Mhm.
This is something that's like I'm seeing a lot more on social media. They're marketing it really well. They could benefit from doing something like that. It's different from what most American sports are doing that could draw some fans in.
Yeah.
So like some of these sports that aren't as popular in the US right now, but are starting to grow in popularity, I feel like those are the spots where it could really benefit from a promotion relegation type of system.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's sort of a good spot for us. I want to transition into a second set of questions, but before we do that, I want to take a little bit of a break. We'll be right back in a couple of seconds. All right. Welcome back to the second half. I hope you enjoyed the first half of the episode where we talked a lot about minor league sports, what's it like to be a fan of minor league sports, what it takes to be a minor league fan, kind of what you get out of being a minor league fan, what it takes to be a fan for a pro team, sort of a pretty large take on what sport looks like within our American context. And I'd love to transition into the final part of our conversation here. And I really want to talk about some influences or some sociological influences on sport. I'm curious, did you ever feel like you were ever influenced to support these minor league teams? Like, for example, do you think a parent, the media, or things of that nature? Or was this always a intrinsic motivation? Were you always motivated by your connection with a player or something specific?
Yeah. When it comes to minor league side of it, especially, I think social media is a huge influence.
Hmm.
Growing up, my family did bring me to Portland Sea Dog games occasionally. It was a 4 hour drive for us. It was a special trip if we got to do it, but we did do it occasionally. So it was really cool getting to experience minor league baseball. But for the most part, most of my love for like these smaller basketball, football leagues I find in the middle of nowhere is influenced by social media. There's a group, Division One Rejects. They cover a lot of the smaller, like what non-Division One athletes are up to. It's a couple of former D2, D3 NAIA players who kind of just talk about that level of sports in general. And then Embrace the Grind, another guy on YouTube. He covers those football leagues. He's actually the one that introduced me to that European league.
Hmm.
So like,
Interesting.
there's definitely those influences come from just yeah, people I know, like players I know, but also from social media guys,
Yeah.
especially.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think there is a large sort of social influence that occurs in the global context where everybody is sort of influenced towards sport in some context or another. Like for my example, growing up, I played every sport under the sun. I was socialized into following the Rams with my father and what I discussed in the first episode of this podcast. And after that, it sort of became a intrinsic driver, and I found sport on my own. And like you're stating, you find sport through media. And I think what's really interesting is if you look at fandom or just consuming sport 50 years ago when the media was on a piece of paper, like how would you support minor league sports when all you have is a newspaper? And I would struggle to see how those double triple A teams or just any minor league team would survive in times like that.
Yeah, back then it was entirely off of who's local. When it was on paper, it was all newspapers. So you
Mm.
promoted it in the newspaper, you promote it with posters around the town. And that's all you could have done back then.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as we
Yeah.
got television, as we got radio, it was a little easier. But even then,
Hmm.
radio couldn't reach all across the country for the longest time. You could only do local.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's really interesting the way that technology has influenced the way that we consume sport. And one hot take that I have is the introduction of VR into sport consumption. And I personally don't like the fact that VR is being introduced because I think it takes away from the traditional consumption of sport, which is, going to games, seeing them live, interacting with family and friends in the stadium, experiencing the stadium experience. Instead, you strap on a headset and you sit on your couch and you are virtually watching a game. And I think that is so harmful to the traditional consumption of sport and what it means to be a true fan and what you're describing of that minor league connection. I would argue there's no way that a fan could feel that through VR, through a VR headset. There's no way.
No, no chance at all. I
Yeah.
mean, first off, making that happen would be insane to see that happen for
Yeah.
the game in general. But yeah, you just don't get the connections the same way,
Yeah.
because that's what builds smaller sports in general,
Mhm.
minor league sports, small level sports in terms of colleges.
Yeah.
It's all built off of who you know and who you
Yeah.
talk to.
So that actually threw a question in my head. It's coming from the background of a researcher. Do you think that when you consume minor league sports, your attachment to the team isn't actually to the team itself? Do you think you're more getting attached to the players? Do you think you're getting attached to the fellow fans? Do you think it's more towards the experience itself, but not the actual sport itself, more towards more obscure things that the sport provides?
Yeah, I think my biggest factor is the stories of the players. I think that's what keeps me watching.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because I feel like there's portions of each thing that kind of keeps it going, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, it is fun to watch, but I think you can watch any level of football and you're going to have some kind of fun. It
Yeah.
could be really bad, it could be really good. Doesn't matter, still really something, which is what matters to me in terms of that. But when it comes to the players, their stories is what keeps me watching. And then the fans are what keeps me sane when I'm watching. I don't go, I can have a lot of fun, and then all these other people are having fun with. It's like, oh, will I catch you when I come back? If I don't, there's someone over there I also probably have met, and then I can go hang out with them. And you can kind of just jump group to group. Like, I don't have a lot of friends in terms who watch minor league sports,
Yeah.
but I have a lot of friends when I go to a stadium that I do get to talk to.
Yeah.
I will regular with I'll go to college sports really briefly for this. Eastern Kentucky, I was our stat tracker for a while. I tracked all of our stats. I helped put them onto the website live during the game. So like if you watch a game and you go to the website, you go to live stats, partially what I did.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'd go as a fan though, and like I'd go for like the women's games, I'd go for the men's basketball games. The players would come over and dap me up because they remember me, they'd see me over on the side and we just talk.
Yeah.
So it's like I think that same idea. It's like you just get those connections, and that's what keeps me going, wanting to watch these things.
Yeah. Interesting. That's really cool because what research usually looks at is the connection between individual and symbol, and the way that when you think of it in a sport context, it's usually fan to team or fan to organization. But I think what you're describing in a minor league context, it's actually fan to player, individual player, but more sort of like the journey of the player itself, and then fan, like fan to community, and like fan to experience. And that's drastically different than what it is to pro sports because I think it's usually fan to team or fan to like star player or hero, like fan to LeBron James or fan to Patrick Mahomes, fan to Chiefs. But you wouldn't really hear anybody describing what you said in a pro context of like, oh, I'm attached because I love being able to talk to the pro athletes, or that sort of thing. Like I think
Yeah,
it's
it's a very unique experience that
yeah.
is limited to what type of sports you consume.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It sort of transitions me into a article that was written by a few researchers. This was written in 2023. It's an article that is called An Investigation into Dysfunctional Fandom, the Dark Triad Perspective Taking and Restrictive Emotionality. This was by Tommy DeRosset, Hannah Copeland, Brooke Cordis, and Daniel Wan. The way that they describe fandom, they talk about it in two limelights, that there's a positive side and a negative side. And what you mentioned to begin with, this positive side of feeling that sort of family, that sort of connection. And it says a positive side highlights the psychological benefits of sport fandom. And they go on to suggest a couple of things that other researchers have proved. And I'm curious, whenever I list things off, I'm curious to get your opinion on, do you think, does it make sense? Do you agree? And so they go on to say that supporting teams, like being a sport fan, assists in basic psychological needs. So this would include the need to belong. Do you think this is correct in your opinion? Do you think the fact that you're a sport fan, do you now feel like you belong in some sense?
I do think there are parts that do make that you feel that way, right? Like
Mhm.
when you're watching a sport, it's like, hey, there's a group of people I can talk with about this.
Yeah.
Even if they don't fully understand, they understand sports are a thing and they watch sports as well. I feel like there is some sense of, oh, that's cool. Tell me more. And it just kind of creates that sense of like, oh, someone cares. I
Yeah.
do think there is some level to that for sure.
Yeah, and building off of that, what's really interesting is I think this need to belong is different from minor league to major league because I think when you think of need to belong, it's fairly easy to find a market or find a community of some sort of pro group. Like you can go online and find a Facebook group for almost any pro sport team, but that sort of minor league belongingness, I think, is a bit more pinpointed. And like you said, when you go to games, like you know people, you have this sort of family, that sort of connectedness. So that's that need, I guess that sort of belongingness. That's really interesting. I think it's a little bit different with minor league to professional.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And I think the next one says the need for meaning. Do you think now that you're a sport fan, do you think you sort of have like air quotes meaning in your life, or does it sufficiently help with the need for meaning?
That's tricky. I'd say in my personal case,
Yeah.
a little bit yes, but that's because I do want to work in this industry.
Hmm.
Currently, I'm in a different space right now, but it is something I would like to get into full time, and I did study for. But for most people, I would say that's probably not the case,
Yeah.
if I'm being honest, because like I feel like meaning comes from what you want to do, for your life. I feel like that's a huge part of it, at least from my understanding of like how I would interpret it at least.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this need for meaning, I think only makes sense with like die-hard fans or like the ultras in Europe, the fans that are just kind of crazy
Yeah,
to for lack of a better word, the ones that live, breathe, they bleed that team, they follow them day and night. That is their identity, and I think that hints at it a bit more. And also what you hinted at is the individuals that work in the industry too. And I also think this hits on people that study sport, like you did media and journalism. Like I think that is a part of meaning. But I think for like an everyday, just casual fan, I really don't think sport provides meaning for that. I don't really think it would to
yeah.
so
I'd say Packers fans might have a case. A lot of Packers fans have ownership stake in the team. I think
yeah.
they have a case that they might have some meaning. But
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think
outside of
that's
that,
the NFL team, yeah, the Green Bay Packers. I think that whole community, that team is like they're just like
that's their life.
it's their life. That's their symbol. That's basically like football Jesus, and it's kind of wild. I really love the way that that's structured. I wish other teams would structure it, but unfortunately, the NFL won't allow that. So
Won't allow that, and Green Bay is not a major market.
no, it's not. But
Them and
with
Jacksonville are the only two small markets in the league. And
yeah,
Jacksonville's story, how they got a team is insane. But
yeah.
that's a whole different.
Yeah, and the final one is the need for structure. Do you think you now have structure in your life now that you are a avid sport fan?
Again, I'd argue the sports isn't what provides the structure.
Yeah.
I think they have a structure that's easy to follow.
Hmm.
But, again, structure, I feel like when it comes to life, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
But in terms of in sports, it absolutely you can structure your sports week pretty well. Even with minor league sports.
Hmm.
With minor league sports, it's a little trickier though, just because of that volatility we talked about,
Hmm.
right? Like, there's not a guarantee that a game doesn't get canceled for some random reason.
Right.
I mean, the goodness, what was the name of that league? I'm blanking on the name of the league right now. It was another league that they did in the spring a couple years back.
Mhm.
They shut down mid-season because they changed owners in the middle of the season, and then he
Really?
decided I don't want to do this anymore, and they just closed the league down middle of a season.
Wow.
And it was a major league because it was on major TV.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I think those psychological factors, I think, only hint at individuals that are strongly identified with a team that sort of rely on sport. But I guess if you're just an average, everyday fan, the psychology behind that, I don't think holds water, really. I don't think that argument would make sense. It's where it provides structure, provides meaning, all this other stuff. Because, I mean, there's a lot of individuals out there that don't follow sport, and there's a lot of other things that provide meaning in their life that, sport just happens to be there and they like to go and have fun. But, the other side of it is some people rely on sport.
This is true.
And
I mean,
so,
you have season ticket holders who have
yeah,
been there for years. I mean, some fans are only known by their fan nickname.
yeah, yeah,
Chiefsaholic,
yeah,
like that example, he's been through some crazy things, but
yeah, Bills Mafia and sort of all these other, that reminds me of a research article that came out by Dr. Dalia about fan identity threat and how a team that historically is aggressively average, like the Bills. Like if you historically look at their record, they're actually below 500, just barely, but they're
yeah,
below 500, even though they've been really good the past few years. But when you look at their fan base, you sort of would, if I guess if you showed someone who doesn't know who the Bills are and you showed them a video of Buffalo Bills fans, you would assume that the Bills are like
one of the best
modern
teams.
day, literally the greatest team in the NFL. But
You would think
historically,
they're what Pats fans are.
yeah, yeah, and it's like historically they are average, but that's why I really like this article because it goes into why are people so passionate when the team sort of isn't really that good. And they found sort of what you were hinting at is that instead of following sport or fan or identity to team, it's going into a different direction. And they found that fans find meaning in their community and how, like, being from Buffalo, they're passionate about being from Buffalo itself. And how you said, it's more sort of like fan to players' stories. But in Buffalo's case, it's more fan to the community and fan to other fans. And so it's really interesting to think about how I think the modern fan or people that consume sport in modern contexts aren't necessarily always going to fall in love with brand and team. It's sort of what you described and what your relationship is fan to maybe players' stories and the journeys they take. And I think that's really interesting. And so that sort of leads us into these current opinion on sport in our society today. Do you think the way that sport is ran or operated in a North American context is beneficial, is healthy, is good for society? Do you feel like the way that ownership structure is laid out, do you support that or are you against that?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky can of worms in general.
Yeah, it is.
Um, I'd say like in terms of the fan side of it, I feel like there are places where it's really coming together.
Hmm.
It's one of the few ways in society that people come together.
Hmm.
You know, social media has led to over reliance, and so I feel like it's been really avoidant of bringing people together to do things that we used to do as a society. And I feel like sports is one of the few ways that still brings people together. But at the same time, we're seeing ownership and greed take over for care of the teams.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why, like I said, those minor league teams is really one of those good things is like you still have those fans coming together and there isn't greed because they're not worrying about TV deals. They're worrying about bringing fans in
Yeah.
because there's not really a TV deal to be had.
That's right. It's very interesting. So do you think media rights and these sort of media deals that has a negative impact on sport? And so when you
Yeah.
think of minor league, like they don't really think about, I mean, I'm sure they do think about media rights and all that stuff, but that may not be their number one worry or concern. But with the NFL major sports, I'm sure it is.
Yeah. I mean, in major pro sports, in your big four, your
Hmm.
NFL, NHL, MLB, NBA, the big thing with them is how much money is their TV deal worth? Because that is about 95% of their revenue.
Hmm.
5% is everything else. 95% of it's from their TV deals.
Yeah.
With minor league and with smaller sports teams, TV deals and media deals, that's going to be less than 50% of their money.
Hmm.
Most of their money is going to come from attendance, from merchandise, from food and drink, from concessions. They have to worry about, each owner has to worry about how can they make sure their stadium is full and make money off the fans.
Yeah.
And that means an affordable but also very accommodating experience to the fans having a good time.
Hmm.
And I think that is a good thing that I wish we would put on in society. But
Yeah.
it's just, even in college sports, it's not making sense. College sports, we're seeing greed take over.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. I have some hot takes with the way that sport is ran in the US. I think it needs to drastically take a 180 from privatization into community, and community ran sports. I think the way that I know the Bundesliga is ran, the Bundesliga has a 50 plus one rule where every major league professional team, so like Bayern, Dortmund, all that stuff, the ownership can only own 50% of the team, but then the community itself owns 50% plus one. And that way, the community always has majority vote in any decision that will ever happen in regards to the team. And where you see this as is that Netflix documentary with Wrexham of how Ryan Reynolds and McElhenney had to go in and literally had a Zoom call with the community, with the whole community, and literally had to sell the why they decided to buy the team. How is it going to help the community? But when you think of that in an American context, like would that ever happen? No, that would never. I would never see that ever happening.
No
Where
shot.
an owner like would Stan Kroenke come in to St. Louis and have a Zoom meeting with all of the guys from St. Louis, all the community members from St. Louis, and be like, "Hey, I want to move the team. What do you think?" Like that would not, never would that ever happen.
No,
And I think
it's a
that,
huge part of why
yeah,
Europeans don't understand how American sports teams. You're like, hey, American sports team. This team moved here. They're like, what? They moved? How did they move? Like across the city?
yeah,
No, no, no. They moved across the country. They're like,
hmm,
that doesn't make sense
yeah,
because it doesn't happen
exactly.
over there because there's a lot more factors.
Yeah, I agree. And
So
yeah,
it's a
I,
1 to 6 person decision in the U.S. outside of the Packers, and there's a reason the Packers haven't moved.
yep, they never will because they're
They
publicly
can't.
owned. Yeah, they literally can. People literally own stock, and they're renting that stadium from the city of Green Bay. Like they don't own Lambeau. They're renting it from
Yeah,
the
they don't
city.
own Lambeau. They're renting it.
Yeah, like that's wild to me. And every other team, usually the owner, like Stan Kroenke, owns whatever stadium that is. I forgot what it is. It's that like financial
Yeah,
organization.
SoFi.
SoFi, yeah.
But even
Um,
then, that one at least it's co-owned because the
yeah,
Chargers also.
yeah, which is wild to me. Like you're basically using like a almost like a I wouldn't say oligarchy, but it's kind of like that in a sense where owners have this sort of control over everything that happens in every major league. And
Yeah,
it's sort of wild to me that fans or North American consumers don't really think about that. And I feel like a lot of fans I talk to nowadays, they just love the team, blah, 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 all this stuff. But like when you really think of things in the way that sport is structured and ran, I think it's damaging the way that it's structured right now. I think it needs to be collectively owned by the community. Like you said, when you go to games, you have this sort of sense of belonging, you have this sense of family. Like that happens because the community is there for the team and the team is there for the community. But it doesn't necessarily happen with pro sports because they're privately
yeah.
owned.
They're
Like
pricing fans out too.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
not even like ignore like even if we were to ignore like, hey, we want to have this culture of like fans being like involved.
Hmm.
Tickets are you can't get a ticket.
Yeah.
Like pro sports tickets, like I understand they should be more than a minor league ticket,
Hmm.
but they shouldn't be 10, 15, 20x the price of of a small league ticket.
Yeah, I agree. I
I
think
was looking. I was going to go to one of the games. I was going to go up to a Michigan Panthers game because it's not far from where I'm working right now.
mhm.
The cheapest ticket was like $15. I'm like, I can go do that. And that's
Yeah,
not in a bad seat either. That's like a middle of the road seat. It's not like
yeah,
a nosebleeds.
yeah.
You can't even get a nosebleeds ticket to a Lions game for, or no, I'll go to the Raiders because I'm a Raiders fan. I'll go to the
Yeah.
Raiders. You can't get a nosebleed ticket to a Raiders game for less than $1,000.
Yeah, that's wild.
So I was going to go last season. I was not even last season. I was going to go to their inaugural season. I was going to go to the season opener,
Yeah,
which that was going to be expensive either way.
yeah,
And I know that, but like even then, like any game that season, the cheapest ticket was $1,000.
yeah. It's crazy. I mean, that's what happens when you slap a team into Vegas. Like there, that sort of environment is just going to snowball, and I think it's going to price people out. They literally have like a casino in that. They have a nightclub, I think, in the
Yeah, they have a
stadium itself.
nightclub in there.
Yeah,
Gordon Ramsay has a restaurant in there.
like that's wild to me. I think like 50 years ago, sport consumers would see what's happening now with sport, and I feel like we're moving far and far and farther away from the product on the field to the service in the stadium, but in a bad way, not a good way.
Yeah,
And there's a good way to do it, which I think what you're describing with minor league sports is they are actually doing it in a good way to entice fans, but the way that pro sports is doing it is they're enticing fans away from the product to then spend more money and just sort of get in this cycle of like going to the nightclub, going to these expensive restaurants, buying all these drinks and all blah 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 blah. But there's no like collective sort of thing or shared identity there. It's all go to the nightclub, spend money, spend money, spend money, spend money, and then come back, spend money, spend money. And there's no things that you sort of hinted at, which is that sort of sense of family and things of that nature, where minor league teams put the fans first, but in a sort of holistic way. But pro sports, I think they're doing it in a negative way, and it's not. I personally don't think it's good for the context of sport in society, and I really hope that
not
it
at all.
changes. But I don't know. I guess we'll wait and see, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, well, great. I think that that sort of concludes our conversation. I really appreciate you joining me for the episode today. I hope everybody enjoyed the episode, and I hope you join me again in the future. Thanks.